In 1965, the then Northern Nigeria Legislative Assembly enacted the Grazing Reserve Law to provide legal grazing rights and land titles for pastoralists. Under this law, the pastoralists are encouraged to live within the grazing reserves where feeds and water will be provided. Before this law was enacted in 1965, the pastoralists were left to the goodwill of farmers to occupy lands for their cattle. Recently, President Buhari approved the recommendations of a committee to review and dispatch 365 grazing sites across 25 states of the Federation to determine levels of encroachment in order to bring better understanding of the grazing reserves as well as implementation. How will this review impact on the prevailing herders and farmers clashes in Nigeria? This is Report on ITV. I am Blessing Eichi.
In 1976, there was an act, a law that was enacted that actually shows that the governors of a state are the ones that are in charge of the land of that state. It's not federal government. So the issue of not trying to force it against the will of the people, that is where the major problem is. If you go to developed countries, you discover that their own system of operation is ranching, which is also one of the best way to handle all these issues. So if you go to, it's not all the states that actually have lands for all this. So anyone who prefer that they should go into ranching, they will first of all ask, is there a space? Because I know that Cross River have a space like that, which they were in agreement with the federal government, but not all the states. So when they are not trying to say they want to enact it, they want to make it that they should create a space for them. First, I ask a question. Is cow rearing the only business in Nigeria? If you go beyond there, other people are also into businesses, but they are not considered. It should be totally cancelled because it will further aggravate the anger and the violence in this nation.
Grazing reserve were perhaps at that colonial time established for the purpose of actually looking at how the cattle could be grazed, could be taken along those paths for purpose of getting feeds for themselves. And that was quite a number of time ago during the colonial era. And I think that was particularly necessary because of the age of the time. So look at present time, I begin to think whether we should be talking of grazing reserve by now. So as far as that question is concerned, we are saying that the essence was that, we create certain reserves where animals can get their feeds and all of that, which was particular to the time that came to mind. Grazing reserve was working in tandem with the colonial system of that time, the age of time. In the current time, for a government that should be essentially sophisticated to take charge of redevelopment of a state, should not be talking of grazing reserve by now. Because for me, those lands we're taking, and people own them. So why do you think you go back to it and take the lands that you may have left over several years ago, no matter what law was founded that? So as far as I'm concerned, it's retrogressive. It's not a purpose-driven action. And I think they have something else in mind they have not told the whole of Nigeria by revisiting grazing reserve.
Ab initio, to talk of grazing reserve in specified areas is like a colony, a semi-colony within a geopolitical zone. It shouldn't be. The Constitution gives us in Chapter 4 freedom of movement, freedom to own property. So any Nigerian is free to move from the length of Nigeria to the breadth of Nigeria. You don't need to have passport or visa. So that an area is to be designated as a reserve could cause confusion. It could lead to the person claiming to be owner of a portion of a land within an area. So to begin with, it is ultra vires to have grazing reserves. Then to the extent that if you have commodity, if you have cows, if you have camel, you can move with them as they used to move in those days. It is very unwholesome nowadays for the cattle rearers or herdsmen, by whatever names they are called, to attempt to colonize, to look for a semi-demi-quasi area within a geopolicy and regard it as their own colony. So it is in bad faith and it is condemnable. If there are designated areas mapped out, then the herdsmen who organize the grazing should not trespass. They should limit themselves to the designated area for peace to reign, because the natives, the aborigines, who are lessors and landlords in a given place, will not fold their hands to see intruders or somebody from another terrain trying to usurp their land. It is property ownership that is the cause of this thing. So it should be restricted to the place where the herdsmen are working. And they should know that they are just occupying that place for some time. When their tenancy is over, they leave the land to the original owners.
Some of us were very shocked to know that we have grazing routes in Nigeria. And as a lawyer, I've taken our time to look at the law. What we have is a Northern Region Grazing Reserves law that applies to only states of the defunct Northern Region. And as we speak, I know in states like Kwara, in states like Bauchi, and even where the president comes from, Katsina, they have this law in place, right? So I don't think there's any gazette. I think except the laws in these states that, of course, allow for this grazing reserve to be established, we are gazetted. So to that extent, there's no way the president can implement this so-called gazette in the entire country, because it was just a law that applied to states of the defunct Northern Region. And what is more, under the Land Use Act, it is governors that have authority, because lands in every state are vested in the governors. So the idea of now saying that these grazing routes for those who have encroached, I don't think that law is extant in the South. Even for states in the North, that particular law has been overtaken by the provisions of the Land Use Act. And the Land Use Act is a superior kind of legislation because it is incorporated under the 1999 Constitution. So for you to amend that particular law, you have to first and foremost amend the 1999 Constitution. So we want to appeal to Mr. President not to create tension in this country. Already, suggestions have been made. We have the National Livestock Plan that recommends ranching. Ranching is a business. Anybody that is interested in having land for grazing must think towards what we have under the National Livestock Plan, which talks about ranching and not open grazing. And of course, the Southern governors have taken a position in view of their rights under the Land Use Act that come September, every state in the South would have passed its anti-open grazing legislation. We are in the 21st century. There's no country in the world where you see cows move up and down. Even under the defunct, Northern Region, grazing law, you discover that the grazing reserves had certain provisions that made it a criminal offense for you to do anything like open grazing outside those grazing reserves. And I think the idea behind those grazing reserves at that time was ranching. And I think that is the way to go.
Instead of nationalizing the issue of cows in Nigeria, I believe that what we'll be talking about now is to address the issue on how states can handle their produce what they have comparative advantage over. Like in the South, they have comparative advantage over the production of cocoa, palm trees, and all those cash crops. Then that have what is called a huge foreign exchange earners. They will come to the Niger Delta. We talk about the aquatic businesses and fishery. So these are what we are talking about. Our cows do not give over that kind of a huge foreign exchange. So the issue of reviewing all these areas that Mr. President have been able to establish or constitute committee to look into, to me, it doesn't make sense to me. Because this will not even stop the issue, stop the clashes between the herders and the farmers. This issue today have resulted to what I call food insecurity in Nigeria. Farmers don't even go to their farms anymore. And a lot of Nigerians are hungry. Every October 16th, we celebrate what is called the World Food Day, where we have to address ourselves, farmers to go back to the farm. Today they cannot go there because they are afraid that they will be killed, they will be maimed, they will be raped. So even in the villages, in the rural areas, they don't even have access to garri. They can't even go to farm. Everybody is scared. So I believe that instead of Mr. President emphasizing the Constitutional Committee to look at all those areas, whether they are encroaching on the farm of the farmers, what they should do is that he should emphasize on ranching. We should not forget that the cow business are private business.
From the views expressed, the assignment given by President Buhari to a committee to review 365 grazing sites spread across 25 states of the Federation is not considered as a solution to farmers-herders clashes in Nigeria. Instead, it is seen as a call for more trouble. I am Blessing Eyiche.